Now, over this weekend, there was this thing called Barbie Dream Fest. Angel Reese was invited. Serena Williams was invited. And when I tell you that not even 15 people showed up, not even 15 people showed up. When I tell you this was empty, well, I'm doing the word empty a massive disservice.
Less than 15 people at an event headlined by Angel Reese and promoted across social media for weeks. The Barbie Dream Fest at the Barclays Center wasn't just poorly attended, it was a ghost town. And what makes this significant isn't just the empty venue, it's what this reveals about the gap between online hype and actual fan support. Because while Angel Reese's supporters flood comment sections claiming she's as big a draw as Caitlin Clark, this weekend told a very different story.
Is that Megan Rapinoe?
We're in a life-sized Barbie dream house right now, guys. It's...
And I'm thinking, there'll be some things to work out. Yeah, but not okay.
there.
Now this isn't all Angel Reese's fault. I don't want to get it misconstrued. This seemed like a disaster from the jump, a disaster from start.
Look at that footage. That's not a small turnout. That's not even a disappointing turnout. That's a complete and total failure to generate interest. The Barclays Center, a venue that holds thousands, transformed into what looks like a COVID-era event where people were scared to leave their homes. Except this happened 2 days ago, in January 2025. No pandemic restrictions, no safety protocols limiting attendance, just pure lack of interest. Now here's what makes this particularly revealing. This wasn't some random appearance at a local mall. Mattel was involved. Multiple sponsors backed the event. They charged $250 per pass. This was supposed to be a major activation featuring one of the WNBA's most talked about rookies, and it completely bombed.
Which I have questions about where the sponsorship money went.
Damn.
Money? Because there's no cookies, and they make cookies. So what did they contribute?
Was this a scam? Was this kind of scammy-ish? Was this just a money grab? Oh no.
Here, I guess.
Look at all the sponsors and partners for Barbie Dream Fest. Michael's, okay, I know that. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know what Impala is. I'm not sure what Unique Vintage is. I don't know Sweet Lorraine. I don't know. Dilliards, I think I've heard of them before. I'm not exactly entirely sure what they are or what they do.
The sponsors tell you everything about what they expected versus what they got. Michael's was there. Multiple brands you've never heard of contributed. They set up vendor booths, programming schedules, a supposed life-size Barbie dream house. The infrastructure was in place for a real event. What wasn't there were the fans. And before anyone tries to blame this entirely on the organizers, yes, the execution was clearly terrible. The attendees who did show up described it as a scam. Poor signage, minimal vendors, a hand sanitizer packet as the swag bag. But here's the thing. Bad execution doesn't explain empty halls. Bad execution means disappointed attendees. Empty halls mean nobody cared enough to show up in the first place. Think about what this means. Angel Reese has over 3 million followers on social media. Her fans constantly claim she's one of the biggest stars in women's basketball. They insist she drives ratings and sells tickets. Yet when given an actual opportunity to support her at a ticketed event in New York City, one of the largest markets in the country, fewer than 15 people showed up.
This is a huge space, okay, at the Broward Convention Center. It is empty.
Damn, nobody showed up. You hate to see it. She's trying so hard to be Cece. It will never happen. You don't have the reach she does. Be yourself, Angel. This isn't it. She's got no real motion. Her motion is a bunch of black people online who hate Cece more than they love AB. She couldn't sell out her LSU homecoming game versus Brazil. There were about 6,000 in attendance. Indiana's game with Brazil sold out 16K arena. Cece is the true stimulus package for the W. It's not the team that's the problem.
This was during COVID-19, actually. That joke lands because it's exactly what it looked like. Completely deserted spaces. Vendors standing around with nothing to do. The kind of emptiness you'd expect during lockdowns, not at a heavily promoted 2025 event. And here's where the comparison becomes unavoidable. When Caitlin Clark played at LSU's arena earlier this season, Angel Reese's home court where she won a championship, They drew about 6,000 fans, not sold out. Meanwhile, when Clark played in Indiana against the same Brazilian national team, they packed 16,000 into the arena. Sold out completely. Those aren't just numbers, that's measurable proof of drawing power. One player fills arenas, the other generates moderate interest at best. Yet online, you'd think they were equals in terms of fan support and marketability.
I've been said her fans only like drama, but they don't really support her. No one wants to see, sheesh. That's not an isolated incident. That is her fandom plus a lot of bot followers online. We been knew these so-called fans are broke, toxic, and don't leave the basement for this. Oh shit. I think we know why her shoes sell out now. They only put 10 pairs of color. Yeah, I think the comparisons are done. Yeah, can we stop the comparisons? Hey, Angel Reese fans, homies, friends, compadres, amigos.
Listen to what actual attendees experienced. They paid $300 for a VIP pass expecting a real convention. What they got was 10 vendors, only 4 selling anything Barbie related. They walked the entire exhibit hall in 10 minutes. The life-size Barbie dream house was a cardboard cutout with a VW wagon that had locked doors. You couldn't even go inside. One attendee described asking a vendor if this was really everything. The vendor looked disappointed and said, "Yeah, we've gotten that question a lot. That's not an organizer problem. That's an attendance problem." If thousands of fans had shown up, those vendors would have been overwhelmed regardless of the setup quality. The programming was disorganized, sure, but programming doesn't matter if nobody's there to attend it. Barbie Bingo with a nice host doesn't salvage an event when the room is empty.
Organization of it. There was no signs telling you where to go. There were 5 or 6 different ballrooms that you had to figure out which one your program was in, and there was no schedule available. You had to look online and hope that it was accurate, but then things got canceled and moved, and you didn't know where they were going. This sounds like a scam. This sounds like a scam. I looked it up. Mattel apparently is affiliated with this, but this just reeks of scam. How can we just scam these people? Maybe that's why Serena Williams didn't show up. She knew it was a scam. Angel Reese, she just wasn't hip to it. Her manager didn't do enough due diligence.
How on earth could they justify this event? That's the question. And the answer reveals something uncomfortable about the disconnect between online presence and real-world support. Angel Reese's social media engagement is high. Her name generates clicks. People argue about her constantly. But arguing online doesn't translate to buying tickets. Defending someone in comment sections doesn't mean you'll spend $250 to see them at an event. And this is the pattern we've seen repeatedly. Her signature shoe reportedly sold out, but then reports emerged suggesting they only produced minimal quantities, maybe 10 pairs per release. That's not demand. That's artificial scarcity creating the illusion of popularity. Her Chicago Sky Games drew decent crowds, but nothing exceptional. Her presence didn't transform attendance the way Clark's did in Indiana. The Fever went from averaging around 4,000 fans to selling out 17,000-seat arenas. That's a measurable, undeniable impact.
Could they justify, how on earth could they justify this event, the price of this event, and that was all they had to offer? Mattel was even promoting this event. That's the best they could do. Pathetic. Another tribute to the terrible quality that Mattel, if you were debating going, don't. Damn. Whole entire event was a massive letdown, and unfortunately, the Reese's Pieces didn't even come to support. Now, if there was a Wilson event, and a certain somebody showed up, that event's probably busy. All right? That event's probably busy and packed. And Barbie's a big deal. So if we were to have a Caitlin Clark Barbie doll and they had a Barbie event, well, one, I would assume Mattel would probably put a little bit more effort into it, a little bit more try hard into their setup. And 2, something tells me that that event hall would have been packed.
She's trying so hard to be CC, it will never happen. That comment captures the frustration many feel watching this dynamic play out. Because there's been this sustained effort to position Angel Reese as equivalent to Caitlin Clark in terms of star power and fan appeal. The media ran with the rivalry narrative throughout their rookie seasons. Debates raged online about who was more important to the WNBA's growth. But events like this strip away the narrative and reveal the reality. One player has a massive, engaged fan base that shows up and spends money. The other has online supporters who defend her passionately but don't necessarily translate that support into attendance or purchases. And look, this isn't about diminishing Angel Reese as a player. She's talented, she had a solid rookie season, she brings energy and personality to the league. But there's a difference between being a good player with a following and being a transformative star who drives business. The WNBA needs both, but it's important to be honest about which category each player falls into.
Section below. I appreciate
So what does this mean for Angel Reese moving forward? What does it mean for how we evaluate star power in women's basketball? And what does it tell us about the relationship between social media metrics and actual fan engagement? First, this should end the comparisons. They were never valid to begin with, but this makes it undeniable. Caitlin Clark's impact on the WNBA in her rookie season was historic. She drove a 48% increase in attendance league-wide. Games she played in averaged 84% more fans than games without her. Her jerseys outsold everyone. Her games drew record television ratings, over 2 million viewers for her playoff debut on ESPN. Angel Reese had a fine rookie season. She set rebounding records, she generated media attention, but she didn't move the needle on business metrics the way Clark did. And this Barbie Dreamfest disaster is just the latest evidence of that gap. Second, this reveals something about her fan base that's been obvious to anyone paying attention. They're extremely loud online. They defend her aggressively in comment sections. They attack anyone who criticizes her, but they don't show up when it matters. They don't buy tickets, they don't fill arenas, they don't generate the kind of economic impact that actually sustains professional sports. Compare that to Clark's fan base. They travel to away games, they buy merchandise, they watch on television in massive numbers. They created a situation where the Indiana Fever went from one of the league's least valuable franchises to a legitimate moneymaker. That's real support. That's the kind of fan engagement that changes a league's trajectory. Third, this should be a wake-up call for how we evaluate athletes in the social media age. Followers don't equal fans. Engagement doesn't equal support. You can have millions of people who know your name and argue about you online without having thousands willing to spend money to see you in person. Angel Reese has built a significant online presence. She's good at social media. She generates conversation. But conversation doesn't pay bills. It doesn't sell tickets. It doesn't justify the kind of hype that's been built around her as a transformative figure for women's basketball. The organizers of Barbie Dreamfest clearly believed the hype. They thought her name recognition would drive attendance. They invested in sponsors and infrastructure expecting crowds. And they got humiliated by the turnout. That's not just their failure, it's a market correction. It's reality pushing back against inflated perceptions. Now, could better organization have helped? Absolutely. If the event had been well executed with clear programming and legitimate attractions, maybe a few more people show up. But we're not talking about the difference between 500 and 1,000 attendees. We're talking about the difference between 15 and potentially hundreds or thousands. That gap isn't explained by poor signage. Serena Williams was also supposed to appear. She's a legitimate global icon with a massive fan base. If she had shown up and promoted it, maybe that changes things. But even her scheduled appearance wasn't enough to generate interest. That tells you something about how this event was perceived and marketed. The comparison to what would happen with a Caitlin Clark event is unavoidable. If they created a Caitlin Clark Barbie doll and hosted a similar event, it would be packed. Not because Clark is better at social media, she barely posts. Not because her fans are louder online, they're not. But because she has a genuine engaged fan base that supports her with their wallets, not just their comments. That's the difference between real star power and manufactured hype. Real stars fill venues. Real stars drive business. Real stars create situations where organizers have to turn people away, not wonder why nobody showed up. This isn't about tearing down Angel Reese. It's about being honest about what we're seeing. She's a talented player with a future in the WNBA. She'll have a solid career. But the narrative that she's on par with Caitlin Clark in terms of impact and drawing power needs to end. This weekend proved it definitively. The WNBA benefited enormously from having both players in the 2024 rookie class. The rivalry narrative generated attention. The contrast in playing styles created compelling storylines. But as we move forward, it's time to be realistic about who's actually driving growth and who's along for the ride. Angel Reese can build a strong career and fan base, but it starts with being authentic rather than trying to manufacture equivalence with someone operating on a different level. It starts with her supporters showing up in real life, not just online. And it starts with everyone being honest about what we're witnessing. Because empty arenas don't lie, unsold tickets don't lie, and fewer than 15 people at a heavily promoted event definitely don't lie. That's reality cutting through the noise. That's the market speaking clearly about who drives real fan engagement and who generates online arguments. So where does this leave us? With clarity, hopefully. Caitlin Clark is the WNBA's biggest star and most important driver of growth. Angel Reese is a talented young player with potential who needs to focus on basketball rather than trying to compete in areas where she clearly doesn't have the same impact. And the league needs to build around its actual stars rather than pretending everyone's equal when the numbers say otherwise. What do you think? Was this event doomed from the start? Or does this reveal something significant about Angel Reese's actual drawing power versus her online presence? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more honest analysis of what's really happening in the WNBA, subscribe to the channel. Because we're not here to push narratives, we're here to follow the evidence wherever it leads.